All right, Democrat voters rapidly bailing on capitalism. Let's check it out. And welcome to Rob Schmitt Tonight. Socialism has become a major problem for the Democrat Party. New polling indicates their voters dumping capitalism, dramatically favoring socialism by a margin of nearly 2-1 as you look at the information from that CBS News poll right there. Look at those numbers. Positive versus negative on socialism among Democrats. Far more Democrat voters embracing the obvious deceptions of collectivism over the economic model that built this country, that built the broader West, and propelled the West to such extreme wealth and quality of life that we have well-to-do communists with iPhones complaining about capitalism from their luxury apartments. How ironic. Hakeem Jeffries, one of the leaders of the party in its tattered state, pushing against socialism on Sunday, the party trying to figure out what to do in this moment and also trying to downplay what is a very obvious and daunting threat.
I don't support the DSA agenda as has been articulated by the DSA itself. Now, you're going to have individual members who have been elected in Democratic primaries, and if they are elected in the general in November, will be part of the House Democratic Caucus. It's going to be a broad caucus. There will be progressives, there will be New Dems, there will be Blue Dogs.
Yeah, that's Meet the Press yesterday. Hakeem says he doesn't support socialism as it's been described by the DSA. Well, they're the ones pushing it, Hakeem. Nobody intelligent or thoughtful is spreading socialist policies in this country because anybody intelligent or thoughtful knows that these policies are simply a scam. And somehow Hakeem's voting base is captivated by an ideology that history has proven time and time again will fail us, will destroy the country. And while they claim to want to help your cost of living, they claim they just want to help improve your quality of life. In truth, the people pushing this want a pure revolution. They want to burn down this system, no borders, no cops. They want to hijack all the wealth of this country and decide themselves who gets what. The people that have created the least want to be in control of all of it. The socialists are crazy. And the polling shows that somehow, among Democrat voters, they are winning the argument. And that should terrify us all. And the rest of the party is following along, which is making it even worse. Take a listen. This is from the Democrat National Committee. This is from their meeting over the weekend. What does this sound like to you?
This weekend, we gather on the ancestral homelands of the Caddo, Cherokee, Coahuiltecan, Comanche, Lipan Apache, Karankawa, Tonkawa, and Wichita, who call or have called what we now know as Central Texas home.
It's a land recognition right there is what they call that. That is an anti-American act. Nobody who loves, respects this country, wants this country to succeed and thrive would perform a ritual like that. And yet that's what we hear from the Democrat National Committee, the National Party. That's not some DSA chapter. That's from the party. The communists have infiltrated all the key infrastructure at this point and are pushing extreme lunacy, like getting rid of prisons because there's too many people in them.
I do believe that many Americans, especially over time, will come to realize that the radical position is not, defund or get rid of prisons. The radical position is that believing that America should have the most people in prison of any country in modern history, which is what we have now. I don't think most Americans, when they think about it like that, actually support that. And so DSA is trying to build alternatives.
What are your alternatives, sweetheart? What exactly would they be? That's where it gets very interesting. You can complain about having a lot of people in jail, but we jail people because we have to. It's either that or it's a rape, robbery, and murder fest. That's not a sign of a broken system. That's just a reality of living in a society. At the end of the day, we're all animals. Imagine a society without prisons. That's the socialist plan. Just get rid of them. And hope you fare well. Hope you can protect yourself without a gun. And somehow that is a winning message. Again, that is the ideology that is captivating Democrat voters in this country by nearly 2-1. They now look at socialism positively. They look at capitalism terribly. Take a listen to this one.
Goal. So the two things that we're famous for is our commitment to a program and our hatred of the United States Constitution. And what the program does is it gives us a roadmap to revolution, and it gives us the obstacle that we finally will have to get over to have a revolution, which is the United States Constitution, the basis of the United States government.
That's the Socialist Party right there. A hatred for this country is embedded in their souls. They view all inequity in this country as some kind of a crime. If we're not all the same, it's a crime. So capitalism, policing, borders, all must be destroyed. The smart ones like Bernie Sanders soften the tone. They tell fairy tales about how incredible it all will be, pretending that it's possible to pull all of society up to the level of the upper middle class in this country. But the only way socialism actually functions, as we know, is by dragging the prosperous down to the bottom. Equal misery. Over the weekend, CNN's Fareed Zakaria, to his credit, shredded the Democrat Party's radical shift, shredding what's happening right now, acknowledging how serious it is, and debunking one of the movement's most inauthentic claims that the Nordic states prove that their ideology can actually work. Fareed highlighting Sweden's sharp move toward capitalism, like so many of those countries, like all of those countries actually, after nearly bankrupting the country in the 1980s.
Sweden, often still remembered fondly by progressives everywhere as the poster child for democratic socialism, the country, in fact, has made a remarkable pivot toward an entrepreneurial free market economy. After deregulation began in the late 1980s, Sweden suffered its worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. Its banks had to be rescued while unemployment and debt soared. Out of that wreckage, Sweden charted a new course. The government slashed public spending, privatized state monopolies, and carried out what was known as the tax reform of the century. These reforms have reshaped Sweden. The top income tax rate has fallen from nearly 90% in the 1980s to 50% today.
It's always capitalism. The prosperity of the world comes from a system that forces people to work and take care of themselves. It's the only way this works. And with every bit of socialism that we inject into this system, and it seems like we inject a little more every time we get a Democrat in office, we get weakened a little bit more. It doesn't happen all at once. That's how they get away with it. We weaken a little bit more. Every socialist program follows the exact same path. It explodes in cost. Programs that would be insolvent if they were run in the private sector, if they weren't government run. You can look at healthcare in the United Kingdom as a perfect example. Single-payer, socialist disaster. Record wait times, exploding costs, crumbling infrastructure. This is what happens when government provides anything for free. It collapses. Andrew Cuomo lost his last election to socialist Zoran Mamdani here in New York. And here he was on Friday with Bill Maher, lambasting his party for allowing the radicals to commandeer the ship.
When they start with this, well, we're a big tent party.
No.
That is a lot of crap. Big tent party meant all races, color, creeds, we're open-minded. It didn't mean Nazi sympathizers, you're welcome. Anti-Semites, you're welcome. Abolish the police, close prisons, open borders, do away with the Constitution. That's not the Democratic tent. It's just not. But they are afraid, Bill, of the extremists. And they are placating them, and that will make us a fringe party.
Fringe party. Katie Zacharia, Tiffany Smiley, political analyst with us tonight. Katie, we'll start with you. There's definitely something going on. And people like Cuomo have realized it and said, we got to stop this right now. And that polling is very scary.
It's scary. And the Democrat National Convention met and they adopted a lot of these policies going forward. Abolish ICE. This is an immigration enforcement agency that is essentially correcting the open borders of Joe Biden and the Democrat Party. And now they don't want any enforcement mechanism. And a lot of people are just turning a blind eye to this, Rob. But the scary thing is this DSA platform is now creeping up to the DNC and it is becoming mainstream. And what Cuomo said is exactly right. It's scary because they are going to marginalize themselves with these policies, Rob.
That's exactly right. Tiffany, go ahead.
Yeah, well, this started a long time ago. You think of Obama when he won. It's been a slow feed. And, you know, the Democrats are really good at creating a crisis or engineering a crisis that then they can come in and put their spin on it and say, we're here to save the day.
Right.
And that's what's happening. You look
the
at
cost of living crisis.
Exactly. Inflation under Joe Biden. I call it the Build Back Broke. You look at the Green New Deal. You look at the massive amount of cash that was injected into our system and really pushing our country off a cliff. Thank goodness President Trump won and not Kamala Harris to help get it back on track, but it takes time, right? So now they're in this position where they're talking points. They can talk about these platitudes, right? And these really great ideas. Free healthcare, free grocery stores, abolish ICE. Really, they want to rip up the Constitution and start it completely over. But it's selling to these younger kids who maybe went to college and thought they would start at the top, and now they have student loan debt, and these ideas and these platitudes sound really nice.
They do. And again, all of the cost of living disaster that they created themselves. Katie, want to go to this story from the Washington Post today, a story about a young Cuban-American socialist. The headline right there says it all. His family fled socialism. They came out of Cuba. He's trying to spread it. You got a kid that came here from a family that had to flee the country because it was so bad. Line here from the piece. In 2020, he started attending his first year of college classes on Zoom. It was COVID. Racial justice protests. We remember the Summer of Love, right? Alvarez found the Marxist YouTube videos that seemed to explain what he was seeing on the news. He was completely indoctrinated. His own family, the story of his own family and what communists did to Cuba, which, I mean, you can read about, was not enough to, this turned him away from them. That's amazing.
It is, but it's that typical, the first generation that flee communism are the most anti-communist. And then what's happening with the youth right now are these programs, and it was what we warned about TikTok, and it's YouTube, and it's this indoctrination that they know that if they can sell these fake ideas to kids, which by and large aren't going out and voting, but are spreading this fake propaganda, they think that they can win this group of kids. But this is what communists always do. They go for the youth. This is what Mao did. This is what Lenin talked about. It's the tried and true if they can get them. It's what Charlie Kirk wanted to do with Turning Point, is to turn the tide of this communist infiltration, Rob.
I tell you what, Tiffany, when you see a number like 35 or 38% of Democrat voters in a country with a two-party system have a negative view of capitalism, we have missed big time on educating people about how the frickin' world works. You have a negative view of that's. Only 35% had a positive view of capitalism. So 65 have a negative view of capitalism in Democrat Party voters.
Yeah, it starts in our education system. And I think we're seeing that played out. And there are young voters who are voting and they're energized, and they sort of see this as like some sort of badge of honor, like they're standing on this noble high ground and they're so smart and elite. But that is not how our country is founded. It is not why we are great. We are great because we come from all different walks of life and love this country, and we work hard and we fight for it. Nothing is for free. But maybe the Republicans, we have to do a better job of selling that message, of sharing that message, of sharing what President Trump is doing to get inflation under control. And I think Republicans also need to come up with points for health care. We need to make sure that we are lowering healthcare costs for families.
That's what J.D. Vance said.
And taking on the big insurance companies.
You fight this by making people's quality of life better. That's how you really fight it, and that is critically important. Want to get to one more, Katie? It's your state, California. Let's talk about Swalwell for a second here. We haven't seen him in a while. Declassified investigation files on Eric Swalwell released by the White House. Government Transparency Task Force. New details about the relationship with Fang Fang, the Chinese spy. I think Christina Fang is her actual name, but we'll call her Fang Fang. In the file, Swalwell admits to having sex multiple times with Fang. This is something he's been denying this entire time as he's managed to hold his marriage together. They also described Fang as being deeply involved in Swalwell's political operation, attending events, interacting with campaign staff, helping fundraise. Evidence that Swalwell had gotten illegal donations from her as well as a Chinese national. Not that we're really surprised if you know anything about Eric Swalwell, right?
Right. Yeah. And Rob, it was actually over a course of 3 years that the documents talked about. And some of the scary points that came up is he would take Ambien. And that what that does is it diminishes his memory. So who knows what he told her. And really, the bigger story, Rob, the biggest is a day late and a dollar short. The alarm bells were going off about Hong Kong from the beginning. And what did the Democrat Party do? What did the Republican Party do? They allowed this to fester. They allowed a Chinese spy to take one of their party members, bribe him, sleep with him, gain information and access to intel. And who knows what she did it. I think they're calling it the rusty thumb drive where you can find this. So I don't want to know what that means, but this is an indictment on the Democrat Party.
Sounds like something weird. I got to leave it there. Katie and Tiffany, good to see you ladies. Thanks so much. The rusty thumb drive. All right, let's talk about Iran and get kind of serious here for a second. The president floating the idea of declaring the Strait of Hormuz a U.S. territory as the blockade continues to suffocate this regime. But the question is, how long does that take? Warning the terrorist government, Trump, warning the government running the country, I should say, that they are in big trouble. Take a listen to the president.
I like the idea of declaring it a territory. We have total control over the strait. Now, they can be a nuisance. They can put a mine in the water, and people don't like having mines hit their billion-dollar ships, et cetera. But the blockade has been very effective. But we're taking out millions of barrels of oil a week. If you look at the kind of numbers that we're doing, the strait is open. Iran is in big trouble. They have 300% inflation. The country's a mess. And the military is totally defeated.
So that comes as the original 60-day ceasefire expired today. Trump declaring he has no desire to extend it, with Iran refusing to accept all the terms of the deal. They don't want to denuclearize. It appears the president wants to just let this blockade continue and continue to strangle out the Iranian economy, or what's left of it, as the Gulf states rapidly construct these alternate routes for all that oil in the Persian Gulf, because not a lot of boats are getting through the Strait of Hormuz. They're moving the oil in a different direction. Let's talk about this. Katie McFarland back with us, Trump's former deputy national security advisor. Your thoughts on where we're at tonight with Iran, Katie?
Rob, there are two ways to kill a snake. This is an old Chinese proverb. One way is to cut his head off, and the other way is to starve him to death. Now, you can cut the head off, but that's a little risky. I mean, the snake, you might miss. The snake might bite you. The tail might hit you. Putting him in a cage and starving him to death takes a little bit longer, but you get the same result, dead snake. So what's happening with Iran? We're starving Iran. And as you point out, no ships are getting in. They have massive inflation as a result. No ships are going out, so they're not selling their oil. They're not having any income. So they're just slowly on this sort of accelerating descent to collapse.
Well, the Wall Street Journal had an interesting report that the hardliners in the country that are running the country are prepping their forces to try and escalate this war. Obviously, if you're in a starvation tactic, you have to change something, right? They got to change the calculus somehow. Using the 2-month ceasefire to prepare for a larger confrontation, the reporting suggests, including expanding the IRGC's control over Iran's regular military, ramping up missile and drone production. What do you make of that?
I think they're getting ready for an October surprise because they've miscalculated yet again. I mean, they think that what they'll do is probably escalate, do something, kill Americans, attack our regional allies right before the election in the hopes they'll spook Trump and he won't respond because he'll be nervous about oil prices. He'll be nervous about the election. I think the opposite will happen. I mean, I've worked for him. I've been in the Oval Office with him. When somebody tries to bully Donald Trump, he doesn't take it. Well. He goes right back at him.
And we're at this point, we're beginning to see the fruits of the desperation to get this oil out of there, moving into other areas. They're building quickly alternate routes for this oil to get it out of the Persian Gulf. Hopefully that can keep at least oil at where it is now, which is about $80, which is still high, but it's not 100. It's not 120.
For 50 years, Iran has threatened the United States and the world and blackmailed us about the Strait of Hormuz, saying, if you don't let us do what we want, we're going to shut down the Strait of Hormuz. We're going to throw the world economy into chaos. But what Trump has done is, with this strategy, as you point out, everybody's looking for an alternative route. Pipelines the ones that are existing now are being beefed up. New pipelines are being built. Countries are buying American. They're not buying Middle East. And so as a result, the price of oil has really kind of stayed the same, $75, $80 a barrel, which means the Strait of Hormuz is increasingly irrelevant. Other countries are moving their oil in other directions.
Well, that's got to be the plan, right? To make it completely irrelevant at some point, because you can't, or else this regime has to go, one or the other. KT, good to see you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right. Democrats freaking out over fraud investigations into their biggest fundraising arm, Act Blue. Sounds like a guilty conscience to me. That's next with Ken Paxton running for Senate in the state of Texas. Then later in later in the show, not in News from the Left, a Major League Baseball spectacle like we have never seen before. Did you hear this story?
Whenever news breaks.
A lot of destruction there. It was really the front lines in the battle.
And wherever it happens.
Humanitarian corridors opened up this morning.
We're trying to go rescue a 96-year-old lady that doesn't have anybody to take care of her.
They're using ingenuity. They refuse to give up.
It's incoming fire. Come on. Yeah, let's get down here.
Newsmax is there for you.
Hydration or creatine? Most people think they have to choose, but you don't. Get electrolytes to help replenish what you lose through sweat, plus 5 grams of creatine to help support strength, power, and recovery. 2 supplements, 1 stick, 1 less thing to think about.
What if your GLP-1 for weight loss was as easy to take as a mint? Small, discreet, and easy. Think about that. No needles. This is compounded tirzepatide, a mint-flavored tablet designed to fit into your daily routine. You simply let it dissolve under your tongue. A simple daily tablet, as easy to take as a mint.
Save $50 with promo code SLIM at dropthepounds.com/slim. That's promo code SLIM at dropthepounds.com/slim.
Have you ever dreamed of getting your business on TV? At GrowAds.com, we produce a high-end TV spot starting at only $950. Then we air your TV spot on major cable networks in your local area, only at GrowAds.com.
Don't kibble your dog.
Oh, hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, back.
But what's wrong with this? It's premium stuff.
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means it's ultra-processed at extremely high temperatures that destroy the nutrients in the food. But at Dr. Marty, we gently freeze-dried premium meats, fruits, and vegetables, locking in their nutrients.
Never kibbled.
You got it, kid, and they're gonna love it.
The grind catches up with everyone, even me. That's why I trust Cunol Ultra High Absorption Turmeric to support my joint health. It's the #1 doctor-recommended form of turmeric that helps you keep doing the things you love at every age. Cunol, the brand I trust.
Every 8 minutes, a claim of sexual assault is filed against rideshare drivers.
But rideshare companies prohibit both drivers and riders from carrying firearms to protect themselves.
Imagine this banana was a less lethal device capable of incapacitating an attacker in a fraction of a second and allowing you to escape.
At Byrna, we don't sell bananas. Go to Byrna.com to find out how you can always be prepared to defend.
Our nurse-led care anticipates needs before they're voiced, from skilled nursing to companion care that renews the soul.
All right, welcome back. Since 2004, Democrat fundraising machine ActBlue has processed nearly $20 billion in donations, giving Democrats the cash they've needed to pull this country hard to the left. Democrat candidates across the country are still taking ActBlue money despite huge fraud concerns. Congress has been investigating ActBlue for processing illegal foreign donations. Yes, money from perhaps countries that want to destroy our country pouring into the Democrat Party. What does that tell you? Laundering that money to left-wing candidates via unknowing American donors in some cases. In Michigan, you had a case of this. ActBlue claims 88-year-old Elizabeth Waffle, a widow who's been living in a trailer since her home burned down 2 years ago, gave more than 15,000 donations in 6 years, totaling nearly $150,000. Do you think that woman in that trailer is giving $150,000 in donations to a political party? 15 donations to Michigan Democrat Senate candidate Abdul El Sayed, who just barely won his primary, and 104 donations to Hakeem Jeffries as well. 21 donations were made on May 30th, another 18 made on May 31st. Here's a shocker. Elizabeth says that never happened.
It says here that you've donated $150,000 in the last 5 years to various campaigns, and that you've made nearly 15,000 donations.
I doubt it.
Did you make 15,000 donations in 5 years? $150,000?
150? Hell no. I don't have that kind of money.
You have a computer?
No.
No? So how could you make all these donations?
I don't know. I can't believe it. 150,000 is very abnormal, and I think it's wrong. I think there's something in there that's off.
Yeah. They needed a name for a bunch of illegal money from maybe China, some other country that hates us. Something like that would make sense. Earlier this year, the New York Times reported ActBlue's own lawyers warned the organization they may have lied to Congress about checking passport information on foreign donors, other donation protocols as well. They don't like checking the little credit card CVV either. When the ActBlue CEO Regina Wallace-Jones confronted about this by a Republican congressman, it got pretty interesting.
Rights under the Constitution.
Consider correcting the record for this committee when it was brought to your attention that your letter to me was false and misleading.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer the question pursuant to the attorney-client privilege and my Fifth Amendment rights under the Constitution.
Did every ActBlue donation that provided an address outside the United States require passport information?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer the question pursuant to my Fifth Amendment rights under the Constitution.
Yeah, these are the same people telling you don't need ID to vote, right? Can't have ID to vote. Wallace-Jones, other employees pleaded the Fifth Amendment 146 times, actually beat Fauci's record before Fauci. Ken Paxton, the Attorney General of Texas, has investigated ActBlue for years, the Republican candidate for Senate in the state as well. Ken, good to have you back on. How dirty is ActBlue?
Oh, I have no doubt that all of that's true. I mean, we saw the report that you just showed. The woman didn't know she couldn't afford $150,000. I've been investigating them for years. We have a lawsuit now. We know for a fact that they are not following the law. They use these prepaid cards so that no one knows where the contributions are coming from. And federal law requires that you report contributions, and we don't know whether they're coming from the United States, but we're assuming much of this is coming from overseas.
And without question. Want to just talk about your Senate campaign here. This is going to be one of the hottest races this fall is Texas, which Democrats keep telling us is going to be a blue state one of these days. Got a new report this evening that Tallarico's campaign has hired a new deputy policy director, and he was a guy that worked for John Cornyn, your primary opponent, for 5 years as a policy advisor. That has got to be one of the stranger. A guy going from Cornyn to Tallarico is about as strange as it gets. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I just heard that today. I was kind of shocked. But, I guess if you get offered enough money, you make the move.
Sell your soul?
If you don't care about the country and the state going socialist Democrat, which is exactly what James Tallarico is. He fits into the mold of everybody you just talked about earlier.
Is he trying to paint himself as moderate enough for Texas now? Because he was insane when he was a no-name, right?
It is so predictable, Rob. Every view that he had, every vote that he took as a state representative, every interview that he had where he said these radical socialist things, he's moved away from. He's not talking about that. He's running as a Christian pastor who's a moderate, trying to convince people that he is something completely different than he's been for the last decade at least, and probably his whole life.
Yeah. The issue of Islam in your state has been getting more and more interesting. They want to build that city, like an autonomous city for themselves. The Muslims in your state do. You had the governor ordering an investigation into planned Islamic foot washing stations at Dallas-Fort Worth Airport and the funding of it. The airport has now said they're scrapping moving forward with that. You had an Islamic foot washing station were planned to be installed in this airport. That is bizarre, to say the least.
Bizarre and probably unconstitutional to put that in just for one religion. I mean, if you were going to do that, then I think you'd have to take into account every religion and what they wanted. And they were definitely favoring one. I think that was Abbott's argument. And of course, it got their attention, got the airport's attention.
Yeah, it certainly did. Not that we're surprised, but that's something that would be planned at some point, because that's kind of just the way it feels, is like we have to do a lot of pandering to every religion except the one that kind of founded this country. Ken Paxton, good to see you. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
All right. Economic indicator that has a lot of financial experts very worried right now, the 30-year Treasury yield and what it could mean for our entire economy as it has hit a pretty scary level. We got that coming up next.
I switched.
I switched. I switched.
I switched to Newsmax.
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 Have you made the switch?
You bet I did. My whole family switched.
Millions are switching to Newsmax. You should too.
I've been in the fitness industry for more than 25 years. I put people through the ringer with their body. You also have to recover, and Fatty 15 is a built-in recovery system for your cells. Fatty 15 strengthens cells from age-related breakdown, and the science supports Fatty 15. You can't have a healthy outside if you're not taking care of the inside. I just feel really good, and I want you to feel good too.
Yeah. 2 p.m. still works great. We'll put our best guy on the job.
You said you were the best guy.
Also the sales guy.
You should check out Capitalism. You can get a fast business loan and hire some help.
Customer service, please hold. Loans are complicated.
Not with Capitalism. It's easy to apply and there are no hidden fees.
I got this.
Stop waiting, start growing, get the funding you need at Capitalism.com. You should probably call HR.
You're looking at HR.
Kevin Sorbo here, and I have an important message to share. The government needs more money, your money. If you owe the IRS back taxes, they can garnish your wages and levy your bank accounts. They can even seize your retirement or take your home. Don't let the IRS target you. Call the professionals at Tax Network USA. Their tax lawyers and enrolled agents are experts in powerful programs that may even help you eliminate your tax debt.
Call for a free consultation or visit tnusa.com.
My husband is Michael J. Cardus. In March, he got a phone call that said, "You have lymphoma, it's treatable." He died the next morning. My biggest fears were, how do I financially support the kids? How do I emotionally support the kids? And then Tunnel to Towers paid off my mortgage. I felt like I was seen, that my service mattered to somebody.
Every day, bumps and things happen. Bruises are optional. Use daily dermatologist-recommended Dermend and reduce the appearance of bruises. Get Dermend Moisturizing Bruise Cream in the first aid aisle.
Today's AI capabilities can make your head spin, but for scammers, it's the ultimate tool. They're using AI to exploit tech gaps and slip past traditional security. PCmatic keeps your information private and devices safe with online security solutions developed in America to protect Americans. Built for homes, businesses, and government agencies. Secure 5 devices for just $50 for your first year. Get online protection at PCmatic.com.
When Saturday rolls around, I don't want to jump through hoops to watch college football. Good thing DirecTV makes it easy to keep up with my favorite college teams. No hopping between apps or channels.
Stream college football without the hurdles on DirecTV.
Need blood pressure support? Total Beets contain a patented key ingredient clinically shown to deliver 2 times better blood pressure support. That's why Total Beets is the #1 best-selling beets brand in America. Take control of your health with Total Beets. Search Amazon now for Total Beets.
Can this stock market handle a 5% yield on the 10-year?
No. Is the bond market unraveling on a global basis?
It is above 5% for the first time in quite a good while.
We might be getting a bit twitchy further out on the curve, so that the 30-year bonds may not be so much in demand, even when the yield is so fantastically high.
So we don't talk a lot about this kind of stuff. It's more of a CNBC story, but this is actually pretty interesting what's happening right here. There's a lot of worry on Wall Street as a domestic bond sell-off, people selling bonds, drove the 30-year Treasury yield, what the government has to pay people to buy these things, above 5.3% today, which is really high historically, indicating a long-term lack of faith in the health of the economy and also worries about inflation. It's the highest 30-year yield in about 20 years. The headline is making a lot of people on Wall Street uneasy. Steve Moore and Peter St. Onge, 2 of our favorite economists, join us now to talk about this. Peter, start with you. Just kind of lay it out for us in the simplest of terms what this is and what your concerns are tonight.
Yeah, so there are a couple of short-term factors that are driving up bond yields. One of them is oil prices, which, of course, are up for the war. You've got some Fed uncertainty where Kevin Warsh has said that he's not going to be sort of walking everybody through what his future plans are. He's going to hold some of his cards close to his vest. We've also got some rising yields overseas like Japan. But the big one here is really the deficits.
Yeah.
You know, we're closing in on that magic 40 trillion of national debt. Deficits are out of control, apparently, no matter who's in charge. That is starting to worry the so-called bond vigilantes that we're ultimately going to need inflation in order to shrink that national debt as it gets out of control.
And Steve, how important these bonds, these 30-year bonds, how critical are they to, I'd say, the country and the economy?
Well, as Peter was just saying, we're the largest borrower in the world. Yeah. So when those interest rates go up, you get this vicious cycle where you're spending more and more money just to pay the interest on the debt, which is why what Peter said. I mean, what is the single most important thing we could do for our country right now? It's cut government spending, and so we wouldn't have to borrow so much. So there wouldn't be this run up in the bond rate. I would just add one thing to what Peter said. There's conspiracy theories that I think are partly correct, that the Chinese are also selling their bonds as a way to do damage to the American economy. I wouldn't put it. They've tried that before. I think that's a bit of this. But let's not forget, we do have these high interest rates. We also have assets that are now worth $100 trillion. So we're by far the wealthiest country in the world. And if we did have a financial panic, I don't think that's going to happen. But there would be one. Yeah. People actually rush to buy dollars. They don't run away from America. So I'm not quite as concerned about this continuing. But it would be certainly healthier for our economy if we stopped spending and borrowing so much in Washington.
Peter, Steve just said he's not worried that there will be some kind of panic from this. I think a lot of people have thought for years everything's been too expensive. They've been wondering, when do we have some kind of correction that can bring asset prices down, but bring stock levels down from this inflated point? Does the AI crash, does the AI boom crash and recede?
Yeah, I agree with Steve. I don't think that we're looking at a financial panic. Now, of course, if we have one tomorrow, we're both going to be famous, I guess, for this exchange. But, there's always a risk because the Fed dumps too much money and then it yanks interest rates, sure. But it doesn't look abnormally high. I think the bigger concern is that as the 20-year and 30-year yields go up, that bleeds into everything else, right? So you've got more expensive mortgages, business loans, federal interest expense, which I think is on track for 1.2 or 1.4 trillion. It's now larger than the defense budget. So all of those things go up as the yield increases. I don't think we're looking at some, inflection point where we go off a cliff, but certainly every time that the yields go up, it's damaging the entire economy.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing we have to have happen, though, is, Peter mentioned the Fed, and Kevin Warsh is a good friend of mine. I think he's going to be an exceptionally good Fed chairman. He's an inflation hawk. His goal is to get that inflation rate down to 2%, make the dollar as good as gold. And if that happens, if people have an expectation that we're going to have low inflation, which I think they should, then that's going to bring that bond yield down, too, and that'll be healthy for everyone.
Yeah. Well, they don't have that expectation right now, clearly from the headline.
I know,
we saw
but
today.
I think they're wrong.
Yeah.
I'm betting they're wrong. I'm betting we're going to get less than 2% inflation in the next 3 months.
Steve Moore, Peter St. Onge, good to see you both. Thanks, guys. All right, coming up here, the brick queen, Angel Reese, blows it again. A priceless reaction from Caitlin Clark. We are talking WNBA up next.
When you're in the news business, it never stops. News is always breaking, and it's my job to get you the news, no spin, no BS. If you don't believe us, just watch us.
Watch Finnerty, weeknights, only on Newsmax.
The pain is gone. It's gone. I was wheeled in. I couldn't even move 5 feet without the wheelchair. I was in awful pain.
Are you able to get onto the bed?
I doubt it.
No?
We went through the whole intake interview, did the MRI, x-rays. I was awake through the surgery, came back to recovery. I was there for 10 minutes, and I got up and I walked.
Venati succeeds where others fail.
For plant-based healthy blood pressure support, there's one brand that stands above the rest. It's Human, the maker of Super Beets, the only beet brand trusted by more cardiologists for 4 years running. Find out how to get a free month with your first order at human.com.
American spirit. It drives the Good Ranchers mission. Forged under open skies. Woven into who we are. From thundering cattle to the laughter we share around the table. It's a legacy carried forward. One meal, one gathering, one generation at a time. This is Good Ranchers, an American meat company built on American spirit.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work, try to see a doctor this week, or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Order online and save $45. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code NEWS. That's urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code NEWS.
While this banana may not save you from someone breaking into your home, Berna's banana helped one vet repel an intruder in his.
This huge guy, 6'5", 6'6", just barreled through my front door. I have my Berna and my Glock. I always go for the Berna first. I've seen enough death and destruction to last 2 lifetimes. Here is the perfect item I can have, feel totally safe, and know I'm not going to kill anybody.
At Berna, we don't sell bananas, we sell peace of mind.
Attention homeowners, does your roof look like this? If so, your whole home is at risk for costly damage and repairs. Protect it today with a metal roof from Erie Home. Our roofs are tested to withstand wind up to 120 miles per hour. While hail and heavy snow can destroy traditional shingles, with an Erie metal roof, it's no problem. And they're built to last with a 50-year transferable warranty. And if you call now, get up to 50% off installation. Schedule your free estimate today. Call 1-866-770-ERIE or visit eriehome.com.
Atlanta continues to own the offensive glass here in the fourth quarter. Great board, just could not convert it.
Was pushed under the hoop just enough to not have a great angle.
Now, the smile right there from Caitlin Clark said it all. Atlanta's Angel Reese doing what she does best. Bricking layups, and this one cost her team a really important game that they wanted to win. Reese's arch rival, Indiana Fever star Caitlin Clark, seen smiling right there. She walked back to the bench. They've had it out for each other. Indiana winning in overtime. Outkick reporter John Root highlighting Reese's snubbing the national anthem, sharing this image of only the Indiana Fever on the court as the anthem played. Oh. After the game, Angel Reese getting roasted over her brutal miss. Former NBA player Inez Freedom Cantor posting on X, "Sis, once I go number one pick in the 2027 draft, the first player I'm dunking on is Angel Reese." He's one of the guys that says he's eligible for the draft, right? Conservative sports commentator Jason Whitlock also chiming in, calling Reese a comedy show. Well said. John Root, Outkick reporter, joins us now. Lynden Blake, Daily Wire reporter. Good to have you both. Lynden, I don't know how to describe Angel Reese. I've never seen somebody so confident and so praised for being so bad at basketball. I mean, they call it a layup. Like, they use layup in so many different ways as something that's excessively easy to do. Oh, that's a layup. This girl misses layups all day long and just catches them herself.
I mean, as someone that was a former high school basketball player with no skills, aka me, I can tell you a layup for people like me who cannot ball is very hard. But Angel Reese over and over again. She is 6'4". She played at LSU. She is the top draft pick. I mean, this girl, she's right there. Hit the middle of the square. But she can't because she's too busy thinking about what she's going to complain about in her post-game press conference, thinking about what she's going to talk about, some narrative that has to do nothing with basketball. It is just absurd. And Caitlin being right there smiling. I mean, this was like some WWE stuff, going back to that right there when she was showing ring finger, you can't see me, John Cena motion. I mean, clearly Caitlin got the last laugh yesterday. It was poetic.
She's a punk. John, it's amazing to listen to ESPN cover this woman because they pretend as though she's the most talented player they've ever seen, and they all talk about how many rebounds she gets. If I stand under the frickin' goal and miss 2 layups and catch it, that's not a tremendous amount of talent.
Yeah, they're just running PR for Angel Reese. And it's so funny. When Angel Reese was coming into the league, obviously she had a huge rivalry with Caitlin Clark. Now her biggest rival is probably potentially her in the rim. But in general, she's not going to be remembered in 20 years. She said that the WNBA is not just going to be remembered in a couple decades just because of Caitlin Clark. It's going to be remembered because of Me Too. And she actually might be right, but not for the reason that she specifically said that.
Yeah, remember that hero that was bad at basketball, but everybody told us she was good? I got to show a little bit more from the game here. Lynden, Georgia mom and her daughter both wearing XXXY Athletics. That's Jennifer Say's brand promoting only women in women's sports. They put it on for the game. They're told by security, the league basically said your shirt's offensive, you got to cover it up or be kicked out. Take a listen.
We were made to cover up our XXXY shirts at this game. They gave us T-shirts during overtime and told us we had to leave. And this is for the girls. Or cover our shirts up. And we did nothing. Like we were just sitting there. I didn't make signs. I wanted to make signs, but I didn't. I did nothing.
Lynden, they are going to defend this trans ideology that would, by the way, decimate their entire league. They will defend it until the end.
It's insane and it's embarrassing because it's not just that one incident. You had Riley Gaines get told to put her sign down. Ever since these girls in XXXY started showing up to support Sophie Cunningham. Yesterday was her birthday, by the way. Happy 30th, Soph. But it has just been insane how they want to push something that is simply just false. And what gets me the most wound up is it's the sports commentators. It is the people that have made a living covering games, breaking down film, and in the moment this WNBA drama blooms up, they have the worst takes in the league. I'm like, you cannot go back and work for CBS Sports if you're sitting here tweeting out that trans women belong in the WNBA. It has gotten absurd. I don't see how chromosomes can be offensive. But what else is new? The WNBA cannot save themselves.
It is the stupidest league. I mean, they're somehow, these girls are somehow getting paid now. It's still subsidized greatly, but it's such an ideologically stupid league. That's the long and short of it. I got to leave it there. John Root, Lynden Blake, good to see you both. Thanks so much. The president today with two special guests in the Oval. Did you catch any of this? The teen hero, lifeguard Ryder Williams, right there on the left. And the young boy on the right that he rescued after he was swept out to sea last month in Santa Cruz. Both of them right around the president. Dramatic rescue, of course, went viral. Remember this, how incredible this was? 16-year-old Ryder jumping into action, saving 10-year-old Nathaniel Rye. He was swept away by the water. He was only in ankle-deep water, got pulled in. He would have been dead. Unquestionably, that kid was gone. Ryder jumps in, grabs him, keeps him, holds him after he loses consciousness, gets him out of the water with the help of another lifeguard. The president talking about it today. Take a look.
We're honored to have all of you. And again, what you did was incredible. And everybody saw it. They're going to look up to Ryder. They're going to look up to Nathaniel, the way Nathaniel handled it.
We always try to fall back on our training. We are trained so well by many to handle that situation as best we can. So I really was thinking about how to get the boy out of the water as fast as I can. I hope that everybody can take away from this and try to help more people. Try to look out for everybody around you and just try to help everybody out as much as you can.
He's a real hero, and he's a real lucky guy, too. God was watching you.
Had the families in there, too. The president said the kid's got good genes. I'd agree with that. Good kid, 16 years old from California. What an awesome story that is. All right, up next, news from the left. Bobby Kennedy talks Trump's diet.
It's just boxes and boxes of McDonald's.
Hey, I'm Dr. Drupinski. I've been looking at the aging process for a long time. Fatty 15 actually slows it down. Fatty 15 comes out of Navy dolphin research. Without the C15, our cells become fragile and age and oxidize. This pushes that back. That's why I take Fatty 15.
If you're concerned about inflation, government debt, or the value of the dollar, you're not alone. Right now, more Americans are turning to physical gold and silver to help protect their savings. I'm Dean Heskett, President and CEO of Swiss America. For over 40 years, our family-owned company has helped investors protect their wealth through economic uncertainty. But when gold prices rise, something else happens too. New dealers suddenly appear overnight, Big promises, no track record, and too often no accountability. Swiss America has been serving customers since 1982, delivering physical metals, fair pricing, and straight answers. No pressure, no games. If you're considering adding gold or silver to your portfolio, call or text Swiss America and request your free report on protecting wealth with precious metals. When you work with a firm that stood the test of time, you know who you're dealing with today, tomorrow, and years from now. Our experienced team will answer your questions with no obligation. Call or text the number on your screen or visit our website. Experience matters. Trust is earned.
I'm Dan.
And I'm Sienna, and we started Create after realizing that the incredible daily benefits of creatine could be for everyone, not just gym goers.
Our incredible tasting Create gummies were designed in partnership with top creatine scientists and researchers and help support daily energy levels, boost mental clarity, and build and retain muscle.
They come in several delicious flavors, and there's no measuring or messy powder, so it's simple to keep a routine.
Create is creatine for everyone.
Learn more at trycreate.co.
Several days ago, my plane crashed in the wild. Good job, buddy. I'll get you home.
The night is come, and all the land is dry.
I got you.
Go on, boy.
Heart of the Beast. New trailer online now.
I'm stressed.
Great white. Swallow you whole.
No. I mean, I'm 45. I need to get screened for colon cancer. All that prep, holding out the water.
Try Cologuard Plus.
There you go.
It detects 95% of colon cancers, similar to colonoscopy.
And it ships to your home or your ship.
False positive and negative results maker. The Cologuard Plus test is not for those at high risk.
Hey, is there a poop deck joke here?
There is now.
My heart has experienced life-changing wins, losses, and countless miles. To keep living at my speed, I trust Cunol CoQ10. CoQ10 is the #1 cardiologist-recommended supplement for heart health. Cunol, the brand I trust.
As history's preeminent expert on emergency communication, I fully endorse Rapid Radios. They are the only nationwide license-free push-to-talk walkie-talkies without any monthly fees.
That's right. You get access to most carriers' networks without a contract.
With Rapid Radios, you can communicate instantly from this Washington to that one. Isn't that right, George?
Darn straight. And I don't lie. That's my thing.
Now I know what you're thinking. I don't need no fancy highfalutin walkie-talkie. I've got a cell phone. Cell phones are notoriously unreliable during emergencies and when you're in the middle of nowhere. Plus, Rapid Radios are great for remote adventures, emergency preparedness, and workplace communications, and for keeping in touch with your loved ones.
Hey, Pa. Over.
You make me so proud, son. Over. Get your family connected with Rapid Radios today.
Go to rapidradios.com and get up to 60% off today. Plus, free shipping. Rapid Radios. The best way to stay connected.
Welcome back. Time now for news from the left. Former ABC News correspondent Terry Moran admitting that his former network is just loaded with liberals running the entire operation. Not one conservative to find among all of them, the lot of them. And they struggled to understand Trump reporters, he says, because the newsroom lacked any kind of differentiating political viewpoints. Take a look.
Is ABC News a liberal institution?
Yes, but I think like a lot of mainstream media, it's because of lack of viewpoint diversity. That was one of the problems in covering Trump. Because I sent out these, hey, we should be fair to Trump internal emails, I heard from people, engineers, maybe the occasional producer, who said, thank you. Yeah.
I mean, that's exactly the problem with all the media. I mean, when you have an institution that everybody agrees politically one way, you begin to think that that's the only way society should ever be run. And what's crazy is that they're fundamentally wrong about so many different things with the way they look at the world, and yet they're alone on an island running media, programming what people think. Really scary stuff. The admission there tells you everything. I mean, there's no diversity of viewpoint there. Less so in media than maybe any other institution in this country. How scary is that? The people that are shaping how we think. Next up, Michigan Democrat Senate candidate Abdul El Sayed with his take on Fauci and all of that pleading the fifth before the Senate. Take a listen.
So the idea that you are going to
you're going to pursue Dr. Fauci over this witch hunt when it was Donald Trump who did Operation Warp Speed. He's trying to distance himself out of it. And under his second administration, he's trying to prosecute another elderly man for the thing that he made possible, which is the vaccines. Let's just call that what it is.
This wasn't about the vaccines, bro. Yet again, Tony Fauci manufactured the virus to begin with. That's where the fury, most of the fury, comes from on this story. It has nothing really to do with the vaccine. It's about how did we get COVID in the first place? And why was this little twerp sending our money to China through an intermediary and funding the research into a very, very dangerous kind of science that ended up killing millions of people? That's kind of the story. Abdul. And finally, Bobby Kennedy with the real down low on Trump's diet. This is funny.
I talked to Dana White, and he said that he's never seen President Trump drink water. He just drinks Diet Coke. But, you know, he's got more energy than anybody I've ever met.
No, Trump. When he's on the road, he's like, I want McDonald's.
I don't know how they do it, but when you get on his airplane, it's just boxes and boxes of McDonald's. There's some people that can just eat anything, and they're just, they're called super agers. Yeah. I think President Trump is one of those.
Trump's a freak. Doesn't drink water, eats McDonald's all day long, 80 years old, and he's a killer. It's just amazing. Coming up, a sports spectacle like you've never seen.
Closed captioning brought to you by MagnaLife Pain and Inflammation Relief Roll-On.
Your muscle and joint inflammation is real. Here's what real customers are saying about MagnaLife Pain and Inflammation Relief Roll-On. It worked great.
Available at your local retailer.
It's 2 a.m., your fever spiked, and you're miserable. Here's your options.
Urgent care, closed. ER, slammed, and you'll spend hundreds of thousands in both. Telehealth, yeah, but the pharmacies are closed.
That's the reason why we keep emergency medical kits at home.
It has doctor-prescribed medication like generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, other antibiotics and antivirals. You can treat flu, pneumonia, strep, sinus infections, UTIs, and more.
Because if you're sick in at night, traveling or stranded, you don't want options.
You want what is inside this kit. No waiting, no pharmacy, and no copays.
Just schedule a quick telehealth call.
And that's how you feel better faster and avoid serious complications.
Every family should have this kit, and here's how to order yours.
Order online in minutes and use the promo code to save $45. Your doctor-prescribed kit ships fast to your door, packed with medications to treat over 30 conditions. So when something hits, you're ready. And a wellness company telehealth doctor is always there if you need guidance.
Almost half of women runners say safety is their biggest concern.
Majority of us have to constantly change routes, start times.
Instead of thinking of my pace, we worry about being followed, unwanted attention, and stuff that is simply scary.
Imagine this banana was a less lethal device, capable of incapacitating an attacker, letting you get to safety.
At Byrna, we don't sell bananas. Go to Byrna.com to find how you can always safely make it to the finish line.
This Home Depot bestseller is helping homeowners transform their homes in a weekend. Get the look of stone without expensive labor or lengthy installations, and even do it yourself. Most projects take just a few hours. GenStone is Home Depot's top-rated and best-selling faux stone panel system. Trusted by thousands of homeowners nationwide. GenStone's perfect for any flat surface, including foundations, siding, fireplaces, and more. With fast, free delivery in as little as 1 to 2 days, your project can start this weekend. Save on GenStone during this exclusive Home Depot event. Text DEPOT to 59583 and we'll send you a direct link to shop.
I was trying everything, exercising, no carbohydrates, that wasn't helping. As much as I wanted to lose weight, I couldn't stab myself with a needle. Time out. So I was like, is this my life? Is this it? And I found Life MD, and that was a game-changing moment for me. With the GLP-1 pill, I lost 36 pounds in 4 months. I had done nothing except take this little bitty pill. I'm having my hot girl moment.
Get the FDA-approved GLP-1 pills at the lowest cost, with or without insurance, at joinlifemd.com.
Finally tonight, an incredible sports story to end with. A rookie, Major League Baseball rookie for the St. Louis Cardinals, debuts an away game at Wrigley against the Cubs and hits 3 home runs in a row to start off his career in Major League Baseball. Bob Brooks joining us now. This has never happened before, Bob. His name is Joshua Baez. The first pitch he faced in Major League Baseball, yard. The next 2 times he came up, he hit 2 more.
Hey, congrats to that kid. Can the Pittsburgh Pirates get him?
You got an agenda.
Lifelong Pittsburgh Pirates fan. They're never good every year, and this year's going to, in a basket as well. So
I don't think the Cardinals are going to be trading him anytime soon.
Yeah,
They're
probably
gonna hold
not.
on to him.
All right.
Good to see you.
Good to see you, Robbie. Appreciate it.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.